Welcome to U.S. Immigration TV. Well, the Trump administration continues with its enforcement priorities and deportation, and it has revoked a student's visa. Now, it's reported that a graduate student at Marshall University in West Virginia is fighting for his immigration life after the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, revoked his student visa because of a nonviolent misdemeanor charge for operating a vehicle under the influence of alcohol in 2020. In other words, drunk driving. He was sentenced to probation, which was terminated early for good behavior and his compliance. Now, after driving under the influence, or DUI, he applied for his student visa, which was granted, or it was approved. So he, I think, correctly thought everything was fine and he could continue with his studies and eventually graduate. Then, out of nowhere, he receives a notice from DHS that his visa, his student visa, was being revoked for DUI. And think about it, how many of you out there have also perhaps a minor DUI? Look what's happening now. Now, according to the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, this student, I quote, had no notice, he had no warnings, he had no opportunity to figure out how this is going to affect his last few weeks of school or his graduation. He had very little explanation about why it happened. It was one broken sentence in an email simply notifying him his student visa was revoked. Now, the revocation of this person's visa has now made him susceptible to deportation. He's out of student status. However, the ACLU has filed a lawsuit and was able to obtain a temporary restraining order from a federal judge allowing this student to remain in the U.S. while the student fights to have his student status restored. Okay, well, the lesson to be learned from this incident illustrates how tough the Trump administration is in connection with immigration enforcement and how deep into court records they are going to find violations. In this particular case, I mean, we're dealing with a relatively minor DUI incident, yet the Trump administration is going after this student. Now, I know Trump campaigned on a policy or platform of immigration enforcement, but he kept emphasizing how he wanted to go after the really dangerous criminals, such as the felons who commit violent crimes, the gang members. Who would have imagined something like a minor DUI could have such severe and devastating immigration consequences that could result in deportation now that this person's student visa has been revoked? And this case should serve as a lesson or a warning to all other non-citizens, even green card holders, who have any minor criminal matter on their record, because now it's really difficult to know whether a relatively minor crime happening years ago or just a misdemeanor could result in severe immigration consequences. And this is especially true if the person either applies for naturalization or travels outside the U.S. as a green card holder. And this is because when a person applies for naturalization, their entire immigration history and file is examined in terms of whether they obtained their green card lawfully and properly, and whether they have any crimes after becoming a green card holder. Or if a green card holder or a non-immigrant visa holder travels outside the U.S., upon their return, Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, may have access to all their criminal records, including DUI and potential domestic violence. In fact, I recently heard that Doge, Elon Musk, is gaining access to the immigration court records. It could be that they're going to start looking at those and inputting into CBP computers any outstanding deportation orders. Another troubling thing about having minor incidences affecting a person's immigration future is that there was the Lincoln-Riley Act that was passed after that girl who was killed by an illegal alien. And, I want to be clear, what happened to her was horrible. But I don't think that that Lincoln-Riley Act is the appropriate cure for what had happened. Because basically what the Lincoln-Riley Act did was just simply say a person who commits shoplifting should be detained. Can you imagine? We're talking about the DUI in this particular video, but also be aware the Lincoln-Riley Act says that if a non-citizen or illegal alien shoplifts, they should now be detained. Before it used to be for something very serious. With what is going on today with Trump, with the, I'm not going to say chaos, but I think it is calculated to be extremely strict in immigration enforcement. That's why I would recommend that if you are a green card holder and you're eligible for naturalization, you should consider naturalizing now as just a safety net or buffer, so that in case you might have a DUI in the future, you're not going to get yourself deported. But make sure to consult with an attorney first to make sure it is safe. And if you're thinking about traveling outside the U.S., but you have some issues concerning your past or your record, again, consult with an attorney. The lesson to be learned is Trump is tough. Trump is enforcing immigration laws very, very tightly, very strictly. And now you're seeing things such as a minor DUI, driving under the influence from years ago, suddenly having devastating immigration consequences. The Trump administration is truly providing a lot of information and changes to immigration law, and that's why I have this channel, to keep you informed of these changes and developments. So please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. I am Michael Gurfinkel, and thank you for watching U.S. Immigration TV.